We often hear about criminal profiling in movies and TV shows, where brilliant minds piece together intricate puzzles, often leading to dramatic breakthroughs. One particularly chilling aspect frequently highlighted is the psychology behind an offender taking trophies from a crime scene. From a victim's personal effects to something far more sinister, these items are portrayed as crucial keys to unlocking a killer's mind. But how much of this dramatic portrayal is true? And what does the real world of forensic psychology tell us about this disturbing behavior? Today, we're going to gently peel back the layers of myth surrounding criminal profiling and delve into the fascinating, albeit often unsettling, reality of trophy-taking psychology. We'll explore what these behaviors truly mean to investigators and psychologists, separating the Hollywood fantasy from the rigorous, evidence-informed work that actually takes place. It's a journey into understanding human behavior at its most extreme, but also a chance to appreciate the careful science behind it. At its core, criminal profiling is an investigative strategy. Think of it as law enforcement's attempt to infer characteristics of an unknown offender by analyzing their behavior at a crime scene. It's about trying to understand who might have committed a crime based on how it was committed. This isn't about gazing into a crystal ball, it's about patterns, probabilities, and psychology. One of the earliest, most well-known concepts in profiling, pioneered by individuals like Robert Russler and John E. Douglas at the FBI, was the organized-disorganized dichotomy. This idea suggested that crimes, and by extension criminals, could be broadly categorized. An organized crime might show signs of planning, minimal evidence left behind, suggesting a more sophisticated offender. A disorganized crime, on the other hand, might appear impulsive, messy, leaving more clues, perhaps pointing to someone less sophisticated or even mentally impaired. While these early typologies provided a starting point, modern profiling is much more nuanced. Now, let's turn our attention to the specific, often disturbing, phenomenon of trophy-taking. In violent crimes, particularly serial murders, offenders sometimes take items from the victim or the crime scene. But why? What psychological needs does this fulfill? In reality, trophies aren't just souvenirs. They serve various, often deeply twisted, psychological functions for the offender. They can enable the offender to psychologically re-experience the crime, almost like playing it back in their mind. They often represent a tangible reminder of their dominance and control over the victim, a physical manifestation of their power. For some, these items validate violent fantasies, potentially even spurring future crimes by reinforcing their dark desires. In some extreme cases, it's a further act of victim degradation, a way to continue the violation long after the crime is over. And perhaps most disturbingly, especially in sex-related offenses, trophies can be profoundly linked to sexual motivation and stimulation, fueling a dark fantasy life. These items can range dramatically, from jewelry or clothing to pictures, recordings, or in the most horrific instances, even body parts. It's also crucial to remember that not all violent offenders, even serial killers, engage in this behavior. The public's interest in profiling, and particularly in the macabre details of trophy-taking, is undeniable. Shows like Criminal Minds or Mindhunter have captivated audiences, presenting profilers as possessing almost superhuman insight. They often focus on the most dramatic serial killer cases, creating a narrative where profiling is an infallible, decisive tool. But here's where the significant divergence between myth and reality begins.
The truth is, real-world criminal profiling, including the analysis of behaviors like trophy-taking, is a far more complex, debated, and often understated discipline than what we see on screen. It's not about grand pronouncements, but about probabilities and guiding investigations. And this brings us to some of the primary controversies and debates within the field. The first, and perhaps most significant, debate revolves around scientific validity and reliability. Unlike what you might see in a drama, real profiling often faces criticism for lacking rigorous scientific support. Many studies in the past relied heavily on anecdotal evidence, expert opinions, and inductive reasoning, making it difficult to scientifically validate its methods. Research has shown that profiling has a surprisingly low success rate, if success is defined as the profile directly leading to the apprehension of the correct offender. We're talking about less than 3% in some studies. Its proponents argue that its utility is more about narrowing suspect pools and guiding investigations, not about identifying the culprit outright.
But for any method to be truly accepted in a court of law, it needs demonstrated reliability, peer review, and identifiable error rates, things that have been challenging for profiling to consistently prove. This leads us to the question of effectiveness and accuracy. The practical utility of profiling is frequently questioned. Profiles can sometimes be too vague to be genuinely useful, or paradoxically too specific, which can misdirect investigations entirely. Think about the initial investigative focus on Richard Jewell in the Atlanta Olympics bombing, or the significantly incorrect initial formal profile in the DC snipers case, which suggested a single white male when the offenders turned out to be two black males. These examples highlight the potential for misdirection. A core assumption, the homology assumption, the belief that similar crimes are committed by similar criminals, is also under scrutiny. Studies often find no significant correlation between crime scene behavior and offender characteristics for certain types of crimes, challenging this foundational idea. Another serious concern is the risk of bias and stereotypes. When profiles aren't grounded in solid, objective evidence, they can inadvertently reinforce existing prejudices. This can lead to wrongful accusations, judicial errors, and the stigmatization of individuals who might fit a broad, generalized description but are entirely innocent. It's a powerful reminder of the ethical responsibility inherent in this work. This stark reality truly contrasts with the media misrepresentation. Popular culture's glamorous portrayal of profilers with uncanny accuracy, almost exclusively focused on serial killers, vastly misrepresents the actual field. In reality, criminal profiling is a much smaller, less precise subset of forensic psychology. Real profiling involves detailed assessments, extensive report writing, and offers probabilities based on statistics and risk assessments, not definitive predictions or high-action dramatic confrontations. Even the foundational assumptions of profiling are under scrutiny. Ideas like behavioral consistency, the notion that an offender's criminal behaviors follow similar patterns over time, and the homology assumption itself are being debated. Critics argue that these assumptions are somewhat outdated, as modern psychological research increasingly recognizes that human behavior is complex, influenced by a multitude of situational factors, not solely by static, inherent personality traits. An individual's behavior can adapt and change, even within their criminal activities. So, where does this leave criminal profiling, and specifically our understanding of disturbing behaviors like trophy taking? The future of this field hinges on its ability to confront these significant limitations and ongoing controversies head-on.
Overcoming biases, ensuring ethical application, and aligning public perception with the complex, nuanced reality of forensic psychology will be critical. Ultimately, for criminal profiling to truly evolve into a more reliable and ethically sound investigative tool, it must embrace the scientific method fully. When we strip away the Hollywood glamour, we find a field striving to understand some of humanity's darkest impulses, and in doing so, aiming to bring clarity and ultimately justice, but always with the humility that comes from grappling with the intricate, often unpredictable nature of human behavior. Thank you for joining us on this insightful journey.